Hi there, I'm Davey Cretin. Welcome to Cretin Classics. Today we are doing another Favorite Songs of the Year show. Welcome to 2005. Beverly Hills, that's where I want to be. Gimme, 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 gimme. Here are my guests today. Welcome from his self-titled channel, John Alapic from John Alapic. From Bicycle Legs Talks Music, Bicycle Legs. And for the first time on Cretan Classics, I've been on his channel a few times. About time I returned the favor and had him back. Mike Ladano from Grab a Stack of Rock. Welcome.
Thank you so much.
Welcome, everyone. And we are going to do a round robin, three songs each, our top 12 tunes from 2005. And then at the end, we'll have time for some honorable mentions. So, Mr. John Alapic from the John Alapic channel is starting us off. John, your 12, 11, and 10, please, from 2005.
Okay, thank you, Davey. Great to be here. My number 12 is a band I got into not too long before. A friend of mine introduced me to this band. A friend who was much younger than me, and this is a quite eclectic band that they put a lot of marketing into this band. They didn't quite break through here in the States, but I'm talking about the Dandy Warhols from their album Auditorium or the Warlords of Mars. Song I'm going with is the very catchy Holding Me Up. Now, this is a long song, but it's just because the ending of it is just so long. It's just very catchy, very poppy. It's got a lot of great vocal hooks in the song, and it's just takes you in. It's a very, very cool song. There's a lot of cool tunes on this album, but that's the one that's always really brought me in. That's my number 12. Danny Warhol's with Holding Me Up. Number 11. Okay, this artist is still quite popular today, but he's probably known more these days as a member of Dead and Company, but he had a very good career going as a pop singer for a long time. And on this album, he wanted to show that he was just more than a pop singer. He wanted to show what a wicked guitar player he is. And I'm talking about John Mayer, or the John Mayer Trio from the album Try. And this is a live album. The song I'm going with is one of the new songs on the album. It's Good Love Is on the Way. And this is a song that I think I heard just got a little bit of radio play. And I know I saw the a concert from this tour on, maybe it was on HBO or something like that. But Good Love Is on the Way is very cool. There's a lot more grit in the grooves on these songs than what you have on the studio albums that John Mayer is putting out. But wicked guitar playing on here. It's got a great groove, wonderful bridge to it. Very catchy chorus, simple yet effective. Very well done. This is my number 11, John Mayer Trio with Good Love Is on the Way. My number 10 is a band that's been going for about 65 years right now, and they just put out an album a few weeks ago if you're watching this live, or if you're watching this the first weekend of August. This is the Rolling Stones from their album A Bigger Bang. I'm going with the very funky Rainfall Down. Rainfall Down, they're more of a funk groove like late 70s Stones, think Miss You, Emotional Rescue, songs like that. And the guitar line's very chic like, Nile Rodgers like in its presentation. It's very cool. Mick has all kinds of swagger going on. It's very, very catchy. And it's just got a wonderful groove to it. And there's a lot of cool songs on Bigger Bang as well. But to me, that's the most infectious. This is my number 10, Rainfall Down by Rolling Stones. Okay, thank you.
Nice. And the Stones were on my larger list. They didn't make it. Bicycle Legs, over to you, sir, for your first three.
All right. This first one, my number 12, I'm not a betting man, but if I were, I would absolutely bet that none of you have picked this artist, simply because I don't think any of you will have even heard of this artist. You may have heard of the main guy in it, or at least Davey might have. This band was led by a guy called Rick Altizer, who appeared on a couple of early Neil Morse albums like Testimony and that sort of thing. He was also a solo artist in his own right. But then he put a band together with some of his mates, just basically in his garage. And the band is called Dumb Dog Run. And the album is also called Dumb Dog Run. And this is basically power pop, really crunchy, a lot of fun, really melodic. And the song I've gone with is the opening track, which is called I Can't Stop It Now. It's just a lot of fun. It's really infectious. This is just two guitars, bass, drums, straight ahead, and catchy as all hell. Lots of fun. Go and check it out if you've never heard of this band and you're into your sort of power pops, into your sort of Cheap Trick and things like that. Go and check this album out. They do a cover of Let's Go by the Cars on here as well. But yeah, no, really, really good stuff. So that's my number 12. I Can't Stop It Now by Dumb Dog Run. My number 11 is an artist that I talked about in last year's show. He put out an album in 2004 called Side 1. In 2005, he put an album called Side 2. This is Adrian Belew. This album's much more experimental than Side 1. Side 1's sort of power trio kind of music. This is a lot more experimental and electronic and weird. And the song I've gone for is a song called Asleep. And it's just really atmospheric and strange. And, Adrian Belew's playing these electronic drums on it and giving this real great effect to it. And in the second half, you get more sort of natural sounding drums and you get strings as well that he's brought in. Because most of the instrumentation on this album is just Adrian Belew on his own. But yeah, that's probably one of the weirder tracks that I've picked for 2005. Asleep by Adrian Belew's my number 11. Then my number 10 is a debut album by a Swedish progressive rock band. Talking about Moon Safari with A Doorway to Summer. And the song I have picked is actually one of the shorter songs on the album. It's a song called Dance Across the Ocean. But it's really, really infectious. It's in 5/4, which is great. I always love songs with tricky time signatures. And it's upbeat, it's lively. And the thing I love about Moon Safari is, it's got that symphonic prog sound, like a band like the Flower Kings or that sort of thing. In fact, Thomas Bowden plays a bit on this album. But what you get that you don't get with a lot of those prog bands is you get these multi-part harmonies, very sort of Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young sort of thing. So that's a really interesting combination of the symphonic prog and these sort of, CSNY harmonies. And this whole album is brilliant, but I really, really love the song Dance Across the Ocean. So that is my number 10.
Nice. And you beat me to the punch. I was going to say Moon Safari are known for their vocals. You beat me to it. Mike, over to you, sir, for your 12, 11, and 10.
Thank you very much, sir. I'm going to start with an artist that I don't think has ever been featured on Cretan Classics before. Definitely never featured on Grab a Stack of Rock. But just for context, you asked me to participate in 2005, and I said yes immediately because this is sort of an interesting year in my life. It was a very bleak year. It was the last year of me working as a manager at The Beat Goes On, the record store where I worked for 12 years. And I know you and I might do an episode on some secret tales from back behind the counter one day. But during that year, I was exposed to a lot of music that I normally would never have listened to on my own. And I sort of came out of that year feeling very negative towards a lot of these albums. And I was kind of surprised that I still owned this one, because one of the artists that I really had to listen to a lot in 2005 was a guy by the name of Connor Oberst, better known as Bright Eyes. And he did two albums in 2005. He did I'm Wide Awake, It's Morning, which is this acoustic sort of folk album with some electric. And then he also did another album called Digital Ash in a Digital Urn, two albums on the same day. And that one being more of an electronic one, which I don't remember listening to more than once. But this one I was drawn back to a few times because it kind of struck me as, I don't know, the vibe of the music was kind of like young Johnny Cash, but in a much higher vocal register. I really liked it, appealed to me, and the song that I chose from this is called Road to Joy, which is Ode to Joy, but with different lyrics. And the way he sings it is very powerfully fragile. It's the way I'll put it. And I just found something very appealing about his voice. There's something warbling. There is something fragile about his voice, but he has some serious power behind it. So Road to Joy is my number 12 from 2005. Then we go to a band that I actually only discovered relatively recently called My Morning Jacket. And this is an album called Z, or Zed, we might say in Canada, but we'll go with Z. And I chose Wordless Chorus, the opening track. Um, I wrote in my notes that it sounds very stoned and flowy, but it also has sort of like these angelic backing vocals, like these backing vocals, very high and angelic. Um, but the reason that I'm attracted to this song is like there's a lyric in there that I just like, and it's not an original one at all, but we are the innovators, they are the imitators. I don't know, it's just catchy, right? But this is a really kind of cool meandering song, wordless chorus, and it has sort of a reggae vibe to it. I don't know. It's very hard to describe. It probably straddles three or four different genres all at once. And, My Morning Jacket have many different styles within their discography. This is the only one I own, and I got it for $5.99. I got into that because of a TV show called American Dad. There's an episode where the lead character, Stan Smith, becomes obsessed with My Morning Jacket and follows them around on tour, exactly the same as that movie that came out where the kid from the Rolling Stone follows around the band. Same idea. But My Morning Jacket were the band that starred in that, and I really liked all their music that I heard. So that was my number 11. My number 10, going back to 2005, Wolfmother. I didn't even think I owned this album anymore. One of the guys I worked with said, "Hey, you're gonna like this. It sounds like modern Led Zeppelin." I guess okay, Davey, thumbs up on that one. The Joker and the Thief is the song I'm going with, and I was probably exposed to that song multiple times via Tenacious D, Jackass. I think the radio station locally still plays this all the time. And it's just like I associate Wolfmother with that period in my life, and I never explored them beyond this album. I remember liking the album, but it's that one song. It's just that one song that sticks in my memory today, Joker and the Thief. And it's got that great bam, bam, lam, bam, lam. The beat that I'm talking about, really driving beat. Um, Andrew Stockdale, the lead singer, he really gets up there in the high registers, but I don't think quite as annoyingly as maybe like the guy from Greta Van Fleet, perhaps. Not to trash Greta Van Fleet, I do like them, but I think that his voice is maybe a little bit more shrill compared to Stockdale's. Just my opinion. Don't throw darts. Yeah, so that's my number 10, Wolfmother, Joker and the Thief I guess that's a self-titled debut from 2005.
It is, and it's a great record. There was an EP that came out late 2004. Then in Australia, they're an Australian band. The full album came out in 2005, but I think it came out in the States in early 2006. So the release date is sort of all over the place. More on that band later. And The Joker and the Thief was featured in a lot of TV shows and films in the US, and even I think a TV commercial or two. So that song was everywhere. Okay, my number 12. I'm going to start with one of my favorites. I always mention her. Her record this year, one of my favorite redheads on the planet, was called The Beekeeper, and it came out on a different label for her. And the song I'm going with is a pretty ballad called Ribbons Undone by the marvelous Tori Amos. It's a very pretty ballad. There's a lot of songs on this album. It's a long album. If it were vinyl, you might consider it a double album. That is my choice out of the 18 or so songs on The Beekeeper. Next up, a guy made his return in 2005. He hadn't put out a record in, I think, 12 years. The last one was 1993, and it was a bomb. Does anyone remember the record? I think it was called Cyberpunk on Chrysalis Records, and that was Billy Idol. He returned this year with The Devil's Playground, and this is such a great record. There are no bad tracks on this record. I went with the first track called Super Overdrive. This album rocks. Steve Stevens blazes on guitar on just about every song. There are a couple mellow ballads on it. There's one cover song. Steve Stevens is all over it. If you do not know Billy Idol from the 2000s, check out The Devil's Playground. Great album. That is my number 11. And number 10, I'm going with sort of a band I already mentioned, but I'm going with a different track. Weezer put out Make Believe. The song I am picking, I referenced a different Weezer song at the beginning of the show, but I am going with the song We Are All on Drugs. And only Weezer could write a song called We Are All on Drugs and make it fun and funny. And it's just power pop, upbeat with some chunky guitars. And that's what I love about Weezer. Catchy song, great riffs. They love guitar rock, and that's what this is. Two guitars, bass, drums, and vocals. Perfect. So that is my number 10, Weezer. John, back over to you.
Okay, thank you. Now, around this time, there was a bit of a trend going on with legendary artists teaming up with singers who were popular at that time. And Santana did it most famously with the Supernatural album, and then with Shaman 3 years later, and then with All That I Am in 2005. But I'm not going to go with Santana. I'm going with walking, living, breathing jazz legend Herbie Hancock, who made an album called Possibilities, which he went and worked with a lot of contemporary artists, pop artists that were popular at the time. John Mayer was one of them. But I'm not going with a John Mayer song. I'm going with the song called A Song for You, which Leon Russell wrote back in 1970 on his debut album. And it's been covered by many artists. But on this album, the vocalist is Christina Aguilera. And she brings the house down with her vocal performance on here to the point where it's probably, in my opinion, the definitive version of A Song for You now. This is a couple minutes longer than the original written by Leon Russell because it's more in a jazz tone. So you got a lot of great piano playing here and a long ride out from Herbie Hancock on the piano. But it's a very elegant version. I would highly recommend anyone check this out, particularly if you know the original by Leon Russell. That is my number 9. It is A Song for You by Herbie Hancock featuring Christina Aguilera on vocals. My number 8 is a now veteran heavy metal band that all of us have listened to at one point, or perhaps probably still are. And they made what would be a comeback album in 2005 with their most famous singer, Rob Halford. And I'm talking about Judas Priest from the album Angel of Retribution. I'm going with the song Worth Fighting For, which I like to call AOR Judas Priest, because this actually made AOR radio, and you're waiting for the song to get heavy, but it just stays in this mid-tempo groove the whole time. And it's a great song. A little bit of an outlier on this album for Judas Priest, but it is very, very catchy. And the guitar lines are very cool, but they don't really go metal on it. They just stay in that lane the whole time. You're waiting for this to break out, and it just never does. But the groove is what keeps you into the song. So my number 8 is Judas Priest with Worth Fighting For. And number 7 is a singer-songwriter who I talk about every year. And in this year, he passed away, but I will be talking about him in 2006 because he put out a couple posthumous albums were released in 2006. This is one of my favorite singer-songwriters, very restless musician. I'm talking about Chris Whitley. And this is from his album Soft, Dangerous Shores, and I'm going with the title song. Now, this is a very avant-garde album for Chris. Every album that he made was different from the other. I mean, that was why he never really made it, because you couldn't never pin his sound down. But on here, he really went into a lot of different experimental musical directions. His guitar, he's a fantastic guitar player, particularly with the dobro, with the acoustic guitar with a banjo. Here, it's only there for effect. By this point, his vocals were barely above a whisper. He died of lung cancer. And what really brings you into this song is the kinetic rhythms and the loud, jarring keyboards, but it all makes sense. It's all very cohesive, and it's a very mesmerizing song. It's one that's addictive, and it really brings you in, particularly with those rhythms. And the title song is much different than a lot of the other songs on here. It's not all the songs are really fast paced like this one. So I'm going with my number 7 as Chris Whitley with the title song from Soft Dangerous Shores. So there you go.
Nice. And more on Judas Priest later. But will it be the same song or a different song?
I know
Bicycle
what song it
Legs,
won't be.
Loch Ness. Or maybe it will because it's a 12-minute proggy type song. Ho, ho, ho. You'll find out soon enough. Bicycle Legs, over to you, sir.
All right. My number 9 is another debut album. This is a band from the north of England, from a city called Sunderland. They are called Field Music, and this is their debut album, simply called Field Music. Now, how would you describe this band? Alternative rock, maybe a bit of Baroque pop in there as well, and I would actually say also a bit of progressive pop, because I think although they don't do extended songs or anything like that, some of their chord progressions and that sort of thing are a little bit proggy. And this was their first album. It's not where I started with this band. I actually started with their fourth album, which is an album called Plum, and then I worked my way backwards. But yeah, this is a terrific, terrific album. And the song I've gone for is one of the slower tempo songs on this album, and it's called "It's Not the Only Way to Feel Happy." And it's just a really touching lyric, and musically it's really interesting. You've got this is a band of brothers, like a lot of bands are. You've got David and Peter Brewis are the mainstays of this band, and in the early days there was a third guy called Andrew Moore, who was a keyboard player with the band as well. And like David and Peter Brewis would play a whole bunch of instruments, guitars, bass, drums, all that sort of thing. They would cover as much of it as they could, and they would sing, both sing as well. So, but yeah, it's a really, really atmospheric and beautiful song. So that's my number 9. It's Not the Only Way to Feel Happy by Field Music. My number 8 is a band that I bring up every time we do one of these shows and they happen to have an album out. This is the second time that I'm bringing this band up with one of their children's albums. And the band I'm talking about is They Might Be Giants. The album is Here Come the ABCs. If you're a parent of a young kid and you want music that your kids will love and that won't drive you completely potty, go and get the They Might Be Giants kids albums, because musically they don't talk down to the kids. This music is just as interesting for the adults, even if the songs are about letters of the alphabet in this particular case. And the song I've gone for is called C is for Conifers. And it has got this beautiful lyric about conifer trees. It's educational, it's fun. Musically, it's got this bit of sort of an Americana kind of feel to it with banjo in it, and a really great vocal from John Flansburgh on this song. So a lot of fun there. My number 8, C is for Conifers by They Might Be Giants. And then my number 7 probably couldn't be much more different than that. It's a band that I've mentioned once before when they had their debut album came out. This is their second album, and it's just as intense in a lot of ways as that first album. I'm talking about the Mars Volta with Francis the Mute. And the song I have picked is, and I'm going to butcher this pronunciation because I don't speak Spanish, La Via La Viajes. And it's like about a 12-minute song. It's, the verses are really intense and got ferocious playing in them. Absolutely wonderful. And those verses are in Spanish. And then you get these sort of middle eights. I wouldn't really call it a chorus, but it's sort of like a second section of the song, as it were, that they go into, and it's much slower. It's much more Latin infused with the percussion and the piano and all that sort of thing. And the lyrics are in English in that section. So but I mean, the Mars Volta, they get classified as progressive rock, and in a way they are, but they're kind of their own thing in a lot of ways because the intensity of their music is completely different from, I would say, any progressive rock band that I've ever listened to. Probably because they came from a band called At the Drive-In, who are basically a punk band. So, um, but yeah, that is my number seven, La Via La Viajes by the Mars Volta.
Good choices. I haven't heard that Mars Volta album in years, and I did not play it for this year, unfortunately. I have to get back to that one day. Mike, over to you, sir. Oh, you're on mute.
Okay, let's get this one out of the way. In 2005, this band put out their next studio album, and for me, this is the last gasp from this band. I think they've actually already gone over the hill of their last great album. But they also kind of did something in between albums that really turned me off, which was an acoustic album called This Left Feels Right, and it's the first Bon Jovi album that I never bought. So when they came out in 2005 with Have a Nice Day, I'm like, well, at least we're back into form more or less, but we're drifting way further into pop. And this has the first country song, Who Says You Can't Go Home with Jennifer Nettles. That obviously opened the door to Lost Highway. This is the last gasp. This is the last time that I'm really into Bon Jovi. But the song that I chose was not the lead single, Have a Nice Day. I think that's just a silly song. Like, when the world gets in my face, I say, you want to say something like, F you or screw off, but no, have a nice day. Okay. So I chose Last Cigarette. And the reason I chose Last Cigarette is because it's very upbeat. I call it actually kind of pop punk. I think, John, you used a different phrase earlier, but it's just really upbeat pop, power pop, maybe. Very catchy chorus, Last Cigarette. And I think that this album has a lot of good material on it. It's just that they were drifting way further into the pop stuff, which wasn't to my taste. But I think if you're going to listen to Pop Jovi, as I call them, I think Last Cigarette's a pretty good song. It just has that upbeat, like pop punk, like Blink 182 and all those bands. They were so big at that time. And if that's starting to get into the simplicity of the melodies and maybe the simplicity of the guitar hooks, I'm all for it. A lot of other bands, dropped guitar solos completely and totally dove into that sound. But I think Bon Jovi sticking their toe in isn't so bad. So that's number 9, Last Cigarette, The Last Gasp by John Bon. Um, there were a few bands that made comebacks in the early 2000s after long periods or even short periods apart. Two bands did 2 CD compilations with 3 new songs on them. One of them came out in 2004. It was called The Best of Both Worlds by Van Halen. And then in 2005 came Red, White, and Crew featuring the new song If I Die Tomorrow. Now, I thought I'm still kind of skeptical when these bands reunite. I think the Van Halen one kind of proved itself to be really for no good reason at all. And I think Motley Crue was just like, this was their first of several reunions. Oh, Tommy Lee's back in the band. Ah, swell. That's awesome. Tommy's back. So they did the Red, White, and Crew, and they hit the road, and they couldn't be arsed to write very many new songs. So Bob Rock said, well, just produced this Canadian band. They're called Simple Plan, and they had this extra song called If I Die Tomorrow, and maybe it would be good for you guys to do. So Nikki Sixx said, yeah, okay, if I can get a writing credit on it by changing some of the lyrics around and some of the melody around, then yeah, sure. So it's credited to Nikki Sixx and Simple Plan, the entire band Simple Plan. It's called If I Die Tomorrow. It was always speculated And I'm not one here to speculate, folks. I'm not here to want to speculate, but I'll repeat other people's speculation. That maybe Mick Mars didn't even play on this, that maybe it was DJ Ashba who was associated with Nikki Sixx at the time. I don't know. I don't know. Could be Mick. It's a good riff, though. I like the riff. Got a good melody. It is very kind of like rock by numbers, the soft verses, kind of clean guitar, and then it gets into the heavy riff during the chorus, and Vince is there, backed up by, three or four other Vinces in the multi-tracking department. I'm sounding really negative on this, aren't I? I guess I'm just really soured on Motley Crue over the years. Since then, I have been quite soured on them. I think this is pretty much, again, the last gasp. There wasn't very much good that came after this. But I do like If I Die Tomorrow, whether it was written by a Canadian pop punk band called Simple Plan or whether Nikki Sixx had any reason to put his name on the writing credits. I do like the song. So yeah, there's no question when that band is doing anything, there's always this is the driving factor. I don't think Vince and Tommy really liked each other at that point. Okay, so that was number 8, right? So we're down to number 7. And this is a song that I realized I didn't even have burned onto my computer or ripped onto my computer because it has been overkilled on radio. But in 2005, when it came out, I remember sitting at home on my couch and the phone rang right around closing time at the record store. And I was like, whenever the phone rang at closing time, you knew there was a problem. Hey, Mike, it's Kevin. I forgot my key. Can you come and lock up for me? And he was generally a good guy. So it's like, I didn't begrudge him that I had to get in my car, drive across town because when I turned on the radio, a song called The Best of You came on. And I was like, holy crap, brand new Foo Fighters. I was really into the Foo Fighters at that time. Again, I think it's too much of a good thing. I don't even know what their last 2 or 3 albums were called. But In Your Honor, their first double album, which was pretty ambitious in itself. And I think everybody here knows Best of You. I got another confession to make. That's all I have to say. You guys can sing it. It's stuck in your head now. I can see John's face. He's fighting it. It's an earworm that's stuck in his head. I loved it then. It's got a great, great melody. Dave Grohl is, pouring his everything into that vocal. And it's got a good riff. Even some good soloing going on towards the end in the outro. You don't necessarily associate soloing with Foo Fighters too often. For a band that has 3 guitar players, you don't associate soloing with them too much. But that's my number 7, The Best of You by the Foo Fighters. That's my confession to make, and I'll stand by it.
Cool. And speaking of Bon Jovi, my younger sister will be coming on Cretan Classics in a week or two to talk about her experiences seeing Bon Jovi at Madison Square Garden recently. Did she go to 1 show, 2 shows, all 9 shows? Tune in to find out. Moving on with my list, my number 9 is a band I've mentioned before, and I have the CD, but I didn't get it out like the big dummy that I am. Grady, you big dummy! Spock's Beard, the album Octane. I am going with the first track. Well, it's actually the first 5 or 6 tracks, and it makes up a suite called A Flash Before My Eyes. If you add up all, I think it's actually 6 or 7 songs. It's about 18 or 20 minutes long, so it's a Spock's Beard suite. It's really good, different moods, melodies. It's got it all. So my number 9, Spock's Beard, A Flash Before My Eyes. Here's number 8 that John mentioned earlier, this album, the reunion album of Judas Priest called Angel of Retribution, but I am going with track 1, Judas Rising. I love Rob's vocal on that song. It's so evil and angry and menacing when he sings Judas is Rising. So good. Great song. That's my favorite off Angel of Retribution. Number 7, a prog band I love, and hopefully we'll be doing a show about them with our friend Scott Lade on the Prog Corner later this year. The British progressive rock band Arena, the album Pepper's Ghost, 7 great songs, which one to choose? Had to go with the last song, the longest song on the record, the closing track, Opera Fanatica. And it has opera vocals on it, male opera vocals, but the song itself is such a great prog song. Amazing way to end the album. And there's this melodic part at the end where the singer sings Set Me Free, and then the other guys repeat Set Me Free. And just that part of the song is amazing to me. So, Opera Fanatica from Arena, my number 7, Judas Priest, Judas Rising, number 8, And a Flash Before My Eyes by Spock's Beard, my number 9. Back over to you, John.
Okay, thank you. All right, now I'm going to go a little different on each of these. Okay, my number 6 is a band I wasn't really into until a couple of years ago when I discovered, or I'm sorry, when I decided I was going to get into new metal from the 2000s. I want to find out what I missed. And I was surprised at how many songs I knew, but I just didn't know who sang them. But this song spurred me to get into this band, and I didn't realize how popular they were until I looked it up in 2024, right? So this is Seether from the album Karma and Effect. I'm going with the song Remedy, which was a huge hit on the rock radio songs. It was nearly a top 40 hit in the United States. So they got a new metal sound, but they got a lot of hooks in their sound as well. The chorus on here is very, very memorable. It's excellent, but they rock really hard. Great riffs, great delivery. I just dig this song a lot these days. And this is my number 6, Seether with Remedy. Now, number 5. Now I'm going to go with country gospel. And this is one of my favorite artists these days. And he is also a walking, living, breathing legend, in my opinion. And basically known for a country guy, but I mean, he made his name in country. But as time went on, I think he started expanding his horizons. I think he's just more American music. But I'm going with Marty Stewart and his fabulous superlatives from the album Soul's Chapel, which is a country gospel album. And I'm going with the song Somebody Save Me, which is a song that was written decades earlier by the Staple Singers. Now, if you ever heard Marty and his fabulous superlatives, they are like one of the most talented bands on earth. And the fact that they can do anything, and particularly sing. Their harmonies will make you cry. In fact, this song made me cry, so I was like, okay, well, I have to put this in here then. I didn't know this song in 2005. I discovered this album during the pandemic. So because I was wanting to build up, get more into Marty Stewart, because I just got into him a few years earlier with his Way Out West album. But like I'm saying, it's a country gospel song. And it's just a little bit of guitar from Marty leading the way, and the rest of it is all vocals. And the way they harmonize and the way they work off each other is something that you have to hear. It is just wonderful, as is the rest of this album. So my number 5 is Marty Stewart and his fabulous superlatives with Somebody Save Me. Now, something a little bit different, but more contemporary. I got into this band right around this time, and it was on this album too. And this is the only vinyl I'm going to hold up, and hopefully it won't screw up the camera or anything. So I started getting into indie rock through eMusic around 2005. And one of the bands that they suggested I check out was a band called Spoon. And this is from the album Give Me Friction or Fiction. I always say Friction or Fiction. But although they're an indie rock band, they are quite eclectic. The song I'm going with is I Turn My Camera On, which is funky as hell. And it's just led by this wonderful bass line. The guitars are more in here for atmosphere and color. It's the groove that really brings you in. It does have a similar sound to late 70s, early Stones when they would get more funky, more danceable. It's that kind of song, where the rest of this album is, pretty rocking, but there is some atmospheric songs with a lot of keyboards in it as well. So this is my number 4, Spoon, with I Turn My Camera On. All right, thanks.
Cool. I definitely heard that Spoon album. Had a lot of coworkers who played Spoon, so I heard most of their records over the years. Bicycle Legs, you're up next.
All right. My number six, we Mike was talking about comebacks and in 2005 and that sort of thing. This was a real comeback because this particular British progressive rock band had not put a studio album out since 1977. And in 2005, they got their classic lineup back together and put out a fantastic album called Present. The band is Vandergraaf Generator. And the song I have gone with is the opening track, which is called Every Bloody Emperor. And it is just a typical Vandergraaf Generator tour de force. Um, David Jackson playing both flute and saxophones on this at various times. And then Peter Hamill. I mean, singing the way only Peter Hamill sings. He really is a unique vocalist. You know, he can do the dramatic vocals in that lower register, and then he gets right up into that high register and just almost shrieking and just absolutely wonderful. This album is actually a double CD. The first CD has songs mostly, there's one instrumental. And then the second CD is all instrumentals, all improvisations that the band did in the studio. So, well worth checking out if you've never listened to any of the 21st Century Vandergraaf Generator. They would lose David Jackson after this album and continue on as a trio. But this is a wonderful album, Present, and that is my number six, Every Bloody Emperor by Vandergraaf Generator. My number five, I will be very, very surprised if our wonderful host here doesn't have this album somewhere in his list. Um, I've mentioned this band a couple of times already in various shows that we have done. This is possibly my favorite album by them. I don't know. It's certainly one I've always really, really loved. Octavarium by Dream Theater, and the track I've gone with is the title track, Octavarium. 24 minutes of just pure. It's a love letter to 70s prog, that track. It really, really is. I mean, it starts off with this very sort of wish you were here, shine on you crazy diamond, I mean, sort of opening by Jordan Rudess on both sort of his synthesizers, and he's playing like a lap steel guitar. And but then the song goes into these wonderful various sections, you know, some of it very, very proggy, and then it does get a bit metally. And you know, when it gets to the bit, you know, trapped inside this octavarium, you know, James LaBrie's almost sort of, you know, or not death metal, but almost sort of like black metal shrieking, you know, it's like just absolutely screaming those vocals. Um, but it's just, you know, one of my absolute favorite long, long tracks that Dream Theater ever did. I love this album because it's probably their most prog album. And yeah, it's a terrific album and I love it to bits. So that is my number five, Octavarium, the title track by Dream Theater. And then my number four is also a band that I've brought up a couple of times in these shows. And I went back and listened to this album because I didn't know which song I was going to pick. And I love this album, even though this is during their Death Growl era. Opeth's album Ghost Reveries. And the song I have picked off this is a song called Reverie/Harlequin Forest. And Reverie is this little sort of minute and a half atmospheric instrumental bit. And then Harlequin Forest. When Opeth were in their Death Growl era, I always found the songs that I liked best were the ones that started with clean vocals and then got the death growls in later on. The ones that start with death growls, I've always found a little harder to take because I'm not really a death metal guy. Although I've learned to really appreciate this particular era of Opeth. But Harlequin Forest is wonderful. It's proggy, it's metally, it's menacing. And you know, there are a couple of songs which are just clean vocals on this, like Atonement and Isolation Years. But in the end, I had to give it to Reverie slash Harlequin Forest as my favorite track on this. And that is my number four.
Interesting. More on Opeth later. Mike, over to you.
So there's a band, speaking of prog, there's a band that I'm sure a lot of you guys like called King's X. And they lost me for a few years. I really liked Ear Candy a lot. I think that was my peak love for King's X. And they did Tapehead after that. And I really liked Tapehead. It was kind of like a cross between it was kind of like a cross between Dogman and Ear Candy, and it had some great grooves and some anger. And then they did Mr. Bulbous, and I was like, what in the hell? And they did Manic Moonlight, and I was like, I'm stopping buying King's X albums. Sorry, guys. You guys are heading in a direction that I cannot follow. But then around 2016, I decided to do a complete King's X review series on my blog, and I needed to buy the albums that I didn't have. So we just held up Ogre Tones. And although I haven't really listened to Ogre Tones much since I did that review series, I played the song Fly, and it really kind of reminded me of that Ear Candy era of King's X. Had a great groove. It had the John, see, we're going to be so much in sync by the end of the show, John, you're going to be shocked. Um, Fly, great tune. There's a interactive aspect on the DVD where you can watch the video. It's terrible. It was really low budget, but it's a great song. And to me, it has that King's X sound that I really liked, the catchy pop melodies from the Ear Candy era, and the Ty Tabor complimentary high vocals. Loved it. So I'm going with Fly from Ogre Tones as my number. What are we at? Six?
Six.
All right. Number five. Speaking of proggy, there was an album that came out in 2005 by one of my favorite bands of all time, top three. And I don't know, the album didn't really hit me. It took a long time to really appreciate Rapture of the Deep for what it is. I think the remixed version of Rapture of the Deep is pretty good. I don't know if it really makes the album better, quote unquote better, but there's a couple really great tunes on this album. And I went with the ballad, Clearly Quite Absurd. And that wasn't really a tough choice because it's the one song that I just love to listen to any time of day. It's sad. Ian Gillan's really good at sad, I think. It's just a lovely song, though. And this 2 CD edition has a new version of Clearly Quite Absurd on the second disc. So there are actually 3 versions in the studio of that, including the new remix. But check out Rapture of the Deep. Michael Bradford co-produced it with Deep Purple. He only did 2 albums with Purple. He did this one and Bananas. This one has a much more dry sound than Bananas, much more raw. It's experimental, but clearly quite absurd. Great track. Great track. So that is number five. Now, number four is a very special song to me by one of my other favorite bands of all time. Top 10. Newer band. And for a while there, it didn't look like they were going to come out with a second album. Looked for a while like they might be a one and done kind of band, even though they had 2 brothers in the band, but there were some drug problems. So what did they do? They made the most self-indulgent album that they possibly could. They wrote a bunch of songs about doing cocaine, and they called it One Way Ticket to Hell and Back. Incidentally, this is one of Harrison's favorite album covers because he loves trains. I can't fault him for that. That is a great cover. I love the color of it. It kind of looks purple. It kind of looks burgundy. I love their logo. I love the darkness. Yeah, they were clearly, I don't think they knew what the heck they were doing. I think that they were so wasted at this time that it's kind of like, let's call Mutt Lang and get him to do the album while Mutt dropped out. And then they ended up, can't remember who produced it in the end. But this is the most self-indulgent album that you're likely to hear. They threw everything at the kitchen sink. It kind of reminds me of when Oasis went full cocaine and did kind of the same thing on Be Here Now. But I think a lot of the songs on here are really good. And I went with Girl with the Hazel Eyes. It's the most ridiculous song on the whole album. for those Justin Hawkins vocals, the ones that go way up into the stratosphere. Ridiculous. But Girl with the Hazel Eyes has a nice little Celtic sound to it. And I've always, always been a sucker for a little bit of Celtic rock with my hard rock. So when that song came on, I was just like, oh my God, what is this? Justin Hawkins always just finds a way right into my heart. I don't know how he does it, but there's always a song or two on every album that are just like immediately resonating with me. And Girl with the Hazel Eyes, that's the one. Actually, it's just called Hazel Eyes now that I look at the back. I always thought it was Girl with the Hazel Eyes. There you go. That's my number four. I really love this album. I need to get that Super Deluxe that came out last year. Uh, do not condone the use of drugs, but sometimes in weird circumstances, they result in some really incredible albums. So that's all I have to say.
Go full cocaine. That is a funny phrase. I wasn't expecting to hear that on the show. But that's what makes it so good. All the diversity, all the lovely choices. Number six, I'm going to the alternative rock world. One of my coworkers, Josh, at the shop used to play a lot of cool indie type rock stuff, and some of it caught my ear. And these guys definitely did. From the album Employment, the band The Kaiser Chiefs with I Predict a Riot. And it's just got this great piano melody, and the way the guy sings the chorus, I Predict a Riot, with the piano underneath it. It's super catchy. Kaiser Chiefs, my number six. Going back to Prague, that Daniel mentioned, have to agree with him, can't add anything. Dream Theater Octavarium, the title track, 24 minutes long. There it is. John's holding it up. And on my Facebook page, that is my banner. And it's been that way for years. I never even changed it. That is my number five. Number four, I've mentioned her before, a Scottish redhead in a band with three Americans from the Pacific Northwest. Garbage from the album Bleed Like Me. And I am going with the title track, Bleed Like Me. And in it, Shirley tells these stories about some troubled youths, I guess you could say, and their problems through life, these great vignettes. And it's just this powerful song, but it's catchy. Title track, Bleed Like Me from Garbage. My number four, Dream Theater title track, Octavarium number five, and I Predict a Riot by the Kaiser Chiefs at number six. John, back to you, dude.
Okay. My number three is a singer-songwriter that I've loved for a long time. And this song won Best Independent Folk Song of the Year in 2005. Talk about the incomparable James McMurtry from his album Childish Things. And I'm going with the song We Can't Make It Here. Now, to me, I don't think there's a singer-songwriter out there that can put a picture to words like James McMurtry can do. And this is a very topical song about how he feels about the current administration that was going on in 2005 and a lot of the things, the reality of what was going on and his opinions on it, and they weren't very flattering. But it's got a very catchy rhythm to it, and while it's a repetitive rhythm, it's the lyrics that really keep you in. It's a 6.5 minute song, but because the lyrics are so creative yet very realistic, they keep you engaged in the song, and I think it's a fantastic song. This is my number three, James McMurtry with We Can't Make It Here. Now, number two. Okay, this album has been mentioned twice. I'm not going with the same song, though. Although I quite like the title track to Octavarium. The song I'm going to go with is These Walls. What I really like about this album is that while it's very prog, I think it's pretty accessible as well. These Walls it's a mid-tempo song. And it's the keyboards by Jordan Rudess are very strong on here. I believe Jordan plays on this album. But this has a fantastic chorus in it. These Walls, this is a song about the walls that are going in your mind. And I think James's vocal on here is magnificent. I love the different rhythms that it goes through in the bridge. I love John Petrucci's guitar solo on here. It's very lyrical that you could sing it, but it is wonderful. It's a long track. It doesn't feel long just because that rhythm really takes you in. It seems like I'm saying really takes you in a lot on my top 10 songs today. But this is my number two, Dream Theater with These Balls. My number one may have been the biggest band in the United States, perhaps the world at this point. And this is when they were still making albums that sounded organic. I say this because I'm not a fan of their later work. This is Coldplay from the album X and Y. And I'm going with the song Talk. Now, this was, I don't, if this was a single, it was probably one of the later singles off the album. But I think everything about this song works. It's got a very distinctive guitar hook in it. Chris's vocal on here is magnificent. The keyboards on it are very well done. They never really take the place of the rhythm or the guitar line. I love the musical bridge on here because it's very solemn and then it builds and then it goes into this great riff. And when I first heard that riff, I was like, well, this is a riff you play in stadiums because it's so huge and momentous and memorable and it's awesome. But I think this song is fantastic. And there's singles off here like Speed of Sound and Fix You that did very well. And they're good songs, but Talk was the one song on here that really grabbed me from the first time I listened to this. I actually bought this album the day it came out. That's how big a Coldplay fan I was back then. But this is my number one off of X and Y is Coldplay with Talk. Okay, thanks.
Excellent. And These Walls, my second favorite Dream Theater song from Octavarium. Bicycle Legs, your top three.
My top three. All right. Well, my number three is by just a legend of music. He was having a bit of a latter-day purple patch around this time. And I think this album it made my top 10 when I did a top 10 of this guy. And that is Paul McCartney with Chaos and Creation in the Backyard. And the song I have picked is a song called Jenny Wren. Jenny Wren is one of those acoustic finger picking songs. Think Blackbird, think something like that. It's got that beautiful feel to it. I might be really, I might get flamed for this. I may think that Jenny Wren is a better song than Blackbird. I think the melody, I love the turn that it takes. It takes this, it it starts off sounding quite Blackbirdy, but then it goes off into this sort of minor key second section, and I love that about it. And then also, as well as Paul on, finger picking that acoustic guitar and playing a tom just to give you a bit of a beat, there is an instrument on here called a dudek, which is like a Middle Eastern reed instrument. And it plays these beautiful lines through the song as well. But it's an absolutely gorgeous song. So that's my number three, Paul McCartney, Jenny Wren from Chaos and Creation in the Backyard. My number two, again, I think this is a guy who pretty much every time he brings an album out, I do, I add him to the list. Here he is at number two. You know him, you love him, Neil Morse. Now, I could have cheated here and just said the whole album because Neil has said that this shouldn't be listened to as 12 songs. It should be listened to as one continuous track. And if you listen to it on CD, absolutely that's how it is. Obviously, for vinyl, it has to be broken up, so that it's over four. Well, the album's over three sides, and then side four, you get a couple of live bonus tracks. But I'm not going to do that. I am going to pick a particular song on here, and the song I've picked is called In the Fire. It is one of the proggiest songs on here. It's got some just absolutely fierce playing from everybody involved, including, and I know he plays on this album, and I'm pretty sure it's on this track, Jordan Rudess from Dream Theater playing some just absolutely wonderful synth in that style that, really is kind of unique to him. So, yeah, that's my number two. In the Fire, Neil Morse from the Question Mark album. And then my number one was always going to be my number one because it might be my favorite song by this band. And they are one of my favorite bands of all time. I am, of course, talking about Dream Theater. The album is Dead Wing. I could have gone for something crunchy on here. I could have gone for something really heavy. I could have gone for something really proggy like Arriving Somewhere, but not here. But no, the song I've gone with is the song Lazarus. It is such a gorgeous song. It is a, 4 minute, almost a pop song in a way, but it's got that, melancholy that you always get with Steven Wilson. And it's just such a beautiful song. The lyric is heart tugging. It's just perfection to me. And it's, not what a lot of people think of when they think of Porcupine Tree. But to me, it's just such a brilliant song. And it's one of those songs that I think absolutely should have been a hit. If it had got onto commercial radio, I reckon it could have been a hit. So that is my number one, Lazarus Porcupine Tree from Deadwing. Thank you.
Great song, great choice. And they mentioned me in the song. They mentioned
Hmm.
David in that song in the chorus. Great song. Mike, over to you for your top three.
Okay. This first one's going to be a song that none of you have heard. And I'm quite proud to have this. This is very expensive to acquire. But back in 2022 or so, Harrison and I did a Alice Cooper Deep Cuts episode. And Harrison picked as one of his picks a song called The Sharpest Pain from Dirty Diamonds. And I'm looking on my CD and I'm like, there's no such song, Harrison. And he says, yes, there is. It was only on the pre-release promo
Okay.
of Dirty Diamonds. There it is, bonus track, The Sharpest Pain. This was replaced on the retail version by a song with Exhibit called Stand. So it's only available, incidentally, it's a 2 CD promo. One of them came with rough mixes. I listened to this and Harrison was right. Not only is this one of Alice Cooper's best deep cuts, this is one of Alice Cooper's best songs. It's from that era when he was starting to get back into rocking and rolling again. He did Brutal Planet and Dragon Town, which were much more heavy and new metally. And then he did The Eyes of Alice Cooper and followed it with Dirty Diamonds. I saw him on the Dirty Diamonds tour here in Kitchener with Helix opening. And he was great. Alice was great. He played a lot of these songs. He always plays a lot of current stuff. But The Sharpest Pain, there's something special about it. And I guess it all comes down to the chorus. It just, it's magical. It's a good hard rock song. And I'm sure that you can find it on YouTube or whatnot. But to get it physically, there's only two ways to do it. One of which is this, and the other is an unofficial Russian promo of Dirty Diamonds, or not promo, the unofficial Russian release of Dirty Diamonds, which I, it was cheaper, but I opted for the better of the two versions, and I don't regret it. I paid $100 for this, and I don't regret it. For one song, I paid $100, and I don't regret it. And that's all because Harrison Kopp is like the most incredible co-host in the world, and he knows the minutia of everything. So I owe this to Harrison. Number two. Well, I guess John said it all, so worth fighting for. I almost went with Judas is Rising. And I almost went with Demonizer, but I went with Worth Fighting For because I felt it's really unique. Everything John said about it is 100% true. It has this kind of relentless mid-tempo groove to it. Great, simple, very simple Ian Hill bass line. Works. Rob Halford's vocal on this, though, it's understated throughout the verses and gets really passionate later on through the song as you go. It's really relentless. And I don't know, you can't call it a ballad or a power ballad, but it kind of straddles that line. And I was really excited when Priest came out with a new album with Rob Halford in 2005. Iron Maiden had done very well with their reunion with Bruce, and I just knew that if Priest could write some great songs, which they did with the exception of Loch Ness, which I've written an entire essay on, by the way. Harrison loves Loch Ness. I do not. I wrote an entire essay on it. But worth fighting for. Damn. Damn, what a song. And they should have released it as a single. Not that singles mattered too much anymore to bands like Judas Priest in 2005. They did play it live, and that is what matters. So worth fighting for. Finally, this man, almost every single time he releases a solo album, he blows me away. He either becomes my number one album of the year or one of my most disappointing albums of the year. But in 2005, he did not let me down with The Tyranny of Souls. Incidentally, these last two albums, both Roy Z, both co-written, or not, Priest didn't co-write, but co-produced with Roy Z, didn't they? I'm pretty sure. And Roy Z co-wrote this album with Bruce Dickinson. Tyranny of Souls. It's kind of like Chemical Wedding Part 2. It is very much a continuation of that sound, maybe stretching out a little bit to become more spacey, a little bit lighter in spots to go with the shade, to go with the heaviness. It still has some of the heaviest stuff that Bruce ever did. And I had to choose between two songs, Kill Devil Hill and Navigate the Seas of the Sun. And both of them are kind of like one leads into the other. Kill Devil Hill is about the Wright brothers, the first flight at Kill Devil Hill in North Carolina. And then it goes from that into Navigating the Seas of the Sun, which is the next step. After air travel, where do you go? You go to space, of course. And it's got just a great chorus, great guitar work by Roy Z. What I like the best about it, though, Navigate the Seas of the Sun, are the lyrics. And I made some notes here with some of the lyrics I liked best. And so we'll go and not return to navigate the seas of the sun. Our children will go on and on to navigate the seas of the sun. So what he's describing there is the classic multi-generational spaceship from science fiction. How do you get from one planet to the other? Well, if you can't travel faster than the speed of light, then the only other way to do it might be multi-generational ships where it takes centuries to get to the next star, and the grandchildren of the original crew are there to greet whoever is waiting on the other side. Another line I liked here. If Einstein's rolling dice and God, he doesn't mind the chance, will navigate the seas of the sun. And that's a reference to breaking the speed of light. That is a reference to Einstein saying that God doesn't play dice. And Bruce plays with this lyric a few times throughout the song. He reverses it. If God's rolling dice and Einstein doesn't mind the chance. I just think Bruce is a genius. I think that maybe he's too smart for his own good sometimes, because he loses me on some of his lyrics, but he also grabs me when I can comprehend what he's talking about. So we've got glorious Maiden-esque heavy metal with light and shade. We've got lyrics that touch science fiction and science. He's quoting Einstein. What more could you want? My number one song of 2005 is Navigate the Seas of the Sun, from the amazing Tyranny of Souls album by Bruce Dickinson, which he made while in Maiden.
That's true. Good choice. Maybe we'll hear more on that song later. My top three, I'm going with a progressive rock supergroup that only released two albums. This is from their debut album. It is a band called Kino, Kino. You have in this band John Mitchell from the aforementioned Arena on vocals and guitar. You have two members of It Bites on here, and you have the drummer that was in Porcupine Tree, if I'm correct, Chris Maitland. They released an album in 2005 called Picture. I'm going with the first track, the 9-minute song Losers Day Parade. This is a great, heavy, hard rock prog song. And then it slows down towards the end. The keyboards come up. You get this great synth line from John Beck, and who plays the keyboards on the record, sings one song on the record called Swimming in Women. But he plays this great keyboard line, great synth line. John Mitchell comes back on the lead vocals, and the end of this song is incredible. It was almost my number one for prog this year, but it lost out. Number three, Losers Day Parade by Kino. Number two, it was mentioned before, Wolf Mother, but I am going with the song Woman, because that's the song that I heard from this record that hit me. Great hard rocking Zeppelin-esque like song. Just like Mike said, there's not a bad song on this record. Every song on the debut Wolf Mother album is great, and I look forward to listening to their records as this series goes on. And my number one, same album as Bicycle Legs, but different song. On the Porcupine Tree album, Dead Wing, I actually chose the longest song, the centerpiece for me of the album, Arriving Somewhere But Not Here. It is an epic song, one of my favorite Porcupine Tree songs, and it's just Prague and it's Steven Wilson and the boys at their best. It's epic. It's got great guitar work. It's got moody keyboard textures, of course, from oh my God, Bicycle Legs. His name just flew out of my head.
Richard Barbieri.
Richard Barbieri from Japan. I was going to say the gentleman from the band Japan, Richard Barbieri. Great keyboard textures on here, and it just rocks like a mother father, as I will say, to keep it as clean as I can. So my number one, Arriving Somewhere But Not Here by Porcupine Tree, Woman by Wolf Mother, my number two, and Losers Day Parade by Kino. If you haven't heard it, it's pop, it's prog, sort of like 10cc or Supertramp. It's progressive pop, and the Kino album is really good. No bad songs out of the 10 tracks. That is my number three. Honorable mentions. John, what do you have?
Fly by King's X. Best of You by Foo Fighters. Carrie Underwood, Until He Cheats. I always like that song. Anybody remember the Spin Doctors?
Yeah.
Well, this is from the album Nice Talking to Me. Hardly anybody heard it, but it brought back the spirit of Pocket Full of Kryptonite with all those great party songs. The song on here called My Problem Now, which is so catchy, I think it would have been a hit back in 1992. It was just a little too late. All right, there you go.
Daniel, over to you for honorables.
All right. Well, one that hasn't been mentioned yet is a double album on CD. Roy Stolt solo album called Wall Street Voodoo. The song I've gone for here is called Everyone Wants to Rule the World. And it actually has lead vocals from Neil Morse. So Neil Morse sings a couple of songs on this album, and he also does an organ solo on one of them. But most of the instrumentation and vocals is Royner on here. And Royner writes every song on here except for a cover of Joni Mitchell's Sex Kills. So interesting album, not as proggy as the Flower Kings, maybe a little more bluesy, maybe a little more psychedelic. So interesting album, worth checking out if you don't know it. The other two that I've got, Davey's already mentioned. Flash Before My Eyes from Spock's Beard's Octane. This is my favorite of the Nick DiVigilio era Spock's Beard albums. I really, really like this album. And yeah, the whole Flash Before My Eyes suite is absolutely wonderful. And then, as Davey just mentioned, Kino. And I also picked Losers Day Parade as one of my honorable mentions. So there you go. Those are my honorables.
Nice. And when John Mitchell does that whole part, Dead Nobodies in Company Cars, I love that
Mm.
part of the song. The whole ending of that song is phenomenal. Go listen to it.
And I wanted to quickly mention one guy in that band that you didn't mention, Davey, and that is Pete Truavis from Marillion on bass.
And I said it was the bass player from It Bites. I am wrong. Ugh, how embarrassing. Even the great ones make mistakes. Sorry about that, Pete. Thank you for correcting my mistake. And I have the CD in the pile next to me somewhere over here. At any rate, Mike, any honorables?
Just one. Um, Although Motley Crue reunited in 2005, Tommy was still doing his solo stuff. And he had this album called Tommy Land the Ride, and there's a song on here called Good Times. So Tommy's back to rock. He's given up the rap stuff that he did with Methods of Mayhem. The only reason I'm picking this song is because in 2005 I met my wife, and we're still married today. And I didn't have cable TV back then, so we spent a lot of time watching DVDs. And I had a lot of DVDs of like quote unquote reality shows like Jackass and whatnot. And one of the ones that I had was Tommy Lee Goes to College. And Good Times was the theme song of Tommy Lee Goes to College. Now it's a dumb show. Don't get me wrong, it's a dumb show. But we were just looking for light entertainment after a hard day's work and some commuting and put on something really easy to watch. And Good Times opened every episode. So, for personal reasons, my wife and I bonded to that song very early on, and here we are today. So Good Times from Tommy Land, The Ride.
That's a good reason to choose the song. I have a lot of honorables. I'm just going to blow through them really fast. Ben Folds released his second solo album, Songs for Silverman. I'm going with the first single, Landed. Opeth, that Bicycle Legs mentioned, Ghost Reveries, the album. But I went with the first song I heard by them, and this was the first album I heard, The Grand Conjurations, like a 10, 11-minute song. Goes through all kinds of craziness. It's got regular vocals, it's got some growls in it, but it's so angry and the playing is so great. The drum work on it, excellent. The keyboard's amazing. Fiona Apple, Extraordinary or Extraordinary Machine. I'm going with the title track. And like our friend DC, it's a very vaudeville, odd sounding song. It opens her solo album, Extraordinary Machine. Great song and a very interesting, unique album and artist. In almost 30 years, she's only released 5 solo albums. Wow, Fiona Apple, really good artist. Here we go, an unusual one from a jazz fusion type album, but it's from the drummer of Smashing Pumpkins. Jimmy Chamberlin Complex was the name of his debut solo album, side project. We have a lot of instrumentals on this record. Couple of guest vocalists, Bill Medley from the Righteous Brothers actually sings a song on this record. Sounds nothing like him. He sounds like an older man, and you could hear it in his voice, sort of like the latter day Johnny Cash stuff. But the song I'm going with, everyone's favorite singer sings on this one. And of course, I'm talking about Mr. Podcast host himself. Billy Corgan sings a song called Loki's Cat on this record. That is my pick, the Jimmy Chamberlin Complex. Very good album. It's only about 43 minutes long, 10 or 11 tracks, but really great playing, and the drums on the album, of course, amazing. Neil Morse, of course, Bicycle Legs showed it. I am picking the ballad Outside Looking In from the Question Mark album. Lovely ballad. It's got a really excellent guitar solo on there. I'm not sure who plays it. Very uplifting song. Great Neil Morse ballad. Audio Slave, whom we mentioned a few shows ago. The second album, Out of Exile. I'm going with the first single, Be Yourself. Great Chris Cornell vocal. Need I say more? Robert Plant and the Strange Sensation. No, yeah, I think that's the name of the band. From the album The Mighty Rearranger. I can't even read my own handwriting here. Shine It All Around, the first single. Great song, catchy song. Bruce Dickinson, the same exact song that Mike picked. The centerpiece of the album to me. Navigate. I can't even, what's the title again?
Navigate the Seas of the Sun.
Thank you. I abbreviated and can't even read it, from Tyranny of Souls. Amy Mann, one of my favorite singer-songwriters. She released an album called The Forgotten Arm. There's this great, beautiful ballad called That's How I Knew This Story Would Break My Heart. Excellent song, great lyrics from Amy Mann. Here's a weird one that's never been mentioned on this channel. Fall Out Boy from their second album, From Under the Cork Tree. And I'm going with the big hit, We're Going Down Sugar. Something about this song makes it super catchy. It's got a weird video with a guy with the horns on his head, like the reindeer horns on his head. Great song, We're Going Down Sugar by Fall Out Boy. And my last honorable mention is a super heavy song from a super heavy band. Might even be heavier than Opeth. The band Trivium from their album Ascending. And I have the song A Gunshot to the Head of Trepidation, which is a heavy song. It's got some great soloing. It's got some screaming vocals. I saw them open for Dream Theater in, I think, 2011 or 2012. And when they played that song, I said, oh, I forgot about that song. That's a great song. So Trivium is my last honorable mention. Guys, we're running long, so if you could just tell all about your channels really briefly and what you have coming up. John, what's coming up on John Alapic?
I do a lot of Latter Day album shows. I'm doing a show on 2012 this month. Check them out. Thanks.
Bicycle Legs, what's coming up on your channel?
All right, my next episode is with our good friend Peter Kerr from Rock Daydream Nation. We are doing an in defense of the Rolling Stones album Undercover.
Ooh.
So check that one out. And then later on, I will be having Todd, who I believe is going to be a guest here very soon. And we are going to be picking our favorite song from every Beatles album.
I know someone who has that exact same show coming up. Mike, what's coming up
Well,
on Grab a Stack of Rock?
as of press time, my very next episode is also with Peter Kerr of Rock Daydream Nation, and we'll be talking about our favorite songs from every Motley Crue album, which will be interesting as we get to the ones that I don't like. We're talking to Tim Derling, author of the April Wine book that just came out. We're talking to him in a week, and soon Harrison Kopp will be back, and we will be resuming and finally finishing 50 Years of Iron Maiden. Thank goodness we have 3 episodes left to do.
Nice. And Tim Derling will also be appearing on Cretan Classics very soon. Unfortunately, we were supposed to tape last night, but I got a last minute ticket to see Rush at the Garden, Madison Square Garden, so we had to postpone that show. I'm sorry, Tim. Thank you for being so understanding and for being a fellow Rush fan from Canada, like our buddy Mike. So, thank you guys for joining me. Next month, we will have a new guest taking over Mike's spot, and he may have been mentioned on this show, or maybe he wasn't. All right, I am Davey Cretan for Cretan Classics. Remember, everyone, to rock out, prog on, and pogo. It's at the end of almost all my videos, and it is my mantra and my logo. Thanks for joining me, men. We will see you soon on Cretan Classics. Take care, everyone, and may the force and the farce be with you.